Welcome to episode 128 of the Fully In It podcast. So, I am curious if you have ever had worries or fears around the impact that a successful business would have on your marriage or on your home and your family life. I know that this is something that I hear quite a bit in my community because we are such intentional women, right? We hold our family life high and also we want to experience that success. And sometimes that can be a tricky balancing act. My guest today on the podcast, Jillian Anderson, is no stranger to this. She experienced insane growth in her online business. And it was all gravy until she started to notice that it was impacting her marriage and her home life. And she had to make some really tough decisions, which you're going to hear about in this episode. I cannot wait for you to hear her story. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Welcome to Fully In It, a show for moms who are called to grow themselves while growing their families. Join me, Kate Saffel, a life and a business coach for moms, a homeschooling mama of 3, and a woman on a quest to show that our lives become even more meaningful when we remember why we are here and what truly matters most. This show is about going fully in it for you and the people you love by showing up powerfully in motherhood, entrepreneurship, in your home life, and for your family vision. Join me for weekly episodes that will inspire you to live intentionally and by your values, to slow down and truly be present to your family life, to make decisions that grow a profitable business without sacrificing anything in the process, and to become the kind of mom and woman you know you're meant to be in this lifetime. So today I have Jillian Anderson joining me on the Fully In It podcast. I am so pumped to have you here today. And for those who they don't know you yet, they're going to learn so much about you. I'm so excited to dig into your story, but just tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Kate. My name is Jillian Anderson. I am a copywriter for holistic women's health professionals and motherhood-centric brands. I write high performance sales copy, and I've been an entrepreneur for it's like 8 years, pushing 9 years now. So, yeah, I relate to a lot of the content you share, Kate, and I relate to just balancing motherhood and entrepreneurship and staying committed to your priorities and your values. And so I naturally have been drawn to, the things that you share.
Yeah.
And I'm just so honored to be here.
Oh, well, it's so amazing to have you here. And so just kind of for context, Jillian and I have been having this back and forth in Instagram DMs and getting to know each other. And your story has been so compelling to me and it has spoken so deeply to me. Really just how you have grown your business and you have grown your motherhood, right? Side by side, but you've kind of seen some challenges come through doing so. What has it been like for you with building an incredible brand, an incredible business, and doing it as a mom?
Well, what a journey, right? I mean, like most of us know, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. So what our businesses look like forward facing is always only going to be a percentage of what is actually going on. So in 2017, I'll back up. In 2013, my son was born. He was born at home, awesome birth. I became a mom. I very soon after realized I wanted to maintain that closeness with him and did not want to go back to my in-person job, which at the time I was a massage therapist in New Jersey. I was making great money. I was very satisfied with that career. I loved my coworkers. I loved the place I worked. And it was at that time the most money I had ever made in that career. So it was a high.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
then yes. And then, and then it was motherhood. Boom. And,
Ooh.
I think about 6 months, when he was 6 months, I tried to go back. And I remember pumping in the massage in the treatment room. It was a spa, so it was cozy. I could turn the lights down. It was A+ all around.
Yeah.
But still, it was like, this is not working for me. I can't leave
Yeah.
him. I don't want to leave him. So, I was pumping and I was like, I need to find a way to work from home. That's it. That's what I'm going to do.
Yes.
So I built a website. I struggled through all those initial hurdles, right? I started to blog about the content that I was, knowledgeable about, which was women's health content, because I had an additional aspect to my massage therapy career was that I was an abdominal massage specialist. So I took to writing about women's health, the uterus, uterine health, the womb, all these
Wow.
things. I built I'll fast forward through this, but through sharing content regularly and product development, I eventually hit a 6-figure annual year revenue business. And that was in 2017. By that stage, it had morphed, right? As we all morph and find our,
For
we
sure.
choose a niche, we say what we're doing. We're like, this is what I'm doing. We buckle down and we, promote that. I had gone through phases by the time I hit that 6-figure annual year mark. And the forward facing aspect of my business was that, like, I sell my stuff. This is working. I have clients, I have customers, I'm rolling, I'm on podcasts, I'm getting it.
Yeah.
I'm doing in-person retreats and people are flying from different parts of the world. Like, it is working. Behind the scenes, I'm not going to say that everything was a mess because that's not true. But my marriage was not A+. And so from where I stand today, I almost feel like I have a responsibility to kind of look back and speak to this, because I'm one of the people who made it through that challenging time, and my marriage is intact and my marriage is thriving now. But at that time, things were off, and it had to do with me. I was the higher earner than my husband. And so we can get into that if you want to, and all the dynamics, but that's the beginning part of the story.
Oh my goodness. This is so cool hearing all of this, right? And so you had your first kiddo, you built out this business, you hit that 6-figure mark, right? And then you had all of these opportunities coming your way, which I know, like, it feels so amazing. And you're like, like, I'm doing it. Like, I'm doing the thing I said I was going to do. I'm going to, like, have the home life and I'm going to have the business. But then it sounds like the marriage piece was feeling like the challenging part. And as a fellow married lady, right? Like, I know when things are feeling off in your marriage, they're off balance, or like there's something with the polarity, right? It impacts everybody in the home and it ripples out into your business and really everything that you do. So I think the piece that really stood out to me was about out earning your husband, simply because I've been there, right? I was the primary earner in my family for a long period of time as well. So I'd love to hear, like, how did that show up between the two of you?
Well, I would say that it showed up in a number of ways. The first thing I'll say is that I definitely was lacking in wisdom. So all of these things I share, some of them I look back and was like, and I'm like, I wish I had some mentorship in this area. I wish there was a wise woman who was kind of talking in my ear a little bit,
Right.
because I could have skipped through some of this stuff a little bit easier. So basically, it showed up in resentment. It showed up in feeling responsible for more than I felt I should be responsible for. But the nature of entrepreneurship is that it was both at once. It's like the nature of entrepreneurship is there's no limit to how much you can earn if you understand getting in front of new people and, and meeting new people and serving new people. Once you have a set of offerings built out, technically, I'm going to say the sky's the limit. Like, you can really go big. So
Yes.
there was this part of me that was like, yes, like, I want to go big. Like, let's do it. Let's scale all this stuff. And there was this other part of me that was like, the longer I out earned my husband, the more it changed my perception of him. And the more that started to kind of like erode the foundation of what was going on. And it's really sad to admit that. And I think kind of, I look back and I'm like, ooh, Jillian, like, why couldn't you reframe? Why couldn't you, but there was something going on that needed to be addressed. And for whatever reason, it didn't get addressed through conceptual mindset shifts. Like it just didn't. It played out in a certain way.
Yeah. Yeah. So like if you today were looking back on this, because I'm sure people listening are going to be so curious, like what was it inside of you that maybe wasn't getting met or that was like creating that resentment? What was happening under the surface?
Well, let's see. So I think that I needed to go through a lot of things, but I think I needed to, like, I'll give an example. In my home, I look at the cleaning and the cooking as my job. Whereas previously I had this kind of like mindset where it was like the even Stevens thing, like we both do all these things. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
You do this. I work, you work. I do laundry, you do laundry. I do this, you do that. Like I had that whole thing going on. And that whole thing breaking apart was really what helped me start to thrive. So I made a shift in, okay, the homemaking is my job. One, I obviously naturally care about beauty, and my husband does not. He literally does not care if it looks good at all. He does not care if it's beautiful. It's like all about functionality and practicality. And so it's really funny. I started to make the shift of the cooking is my job, the cleaning is my job. And I'm not saying like I outsource cleaning. Okay. So, but just because I outsource cleaning doesn't mean it's not my job. You know what I'm saying? Like it's still my role.
Your responsibility.
Yes. So I look at it as like, this is what's on my plate. This is my job. This is my role. And the more I did that, the more his role was like, he was in his role. He was providing, he was protecting. I looked at him with respect. And so it was a slow process of like assuming my side of the boat. I've heard this said like this, like sex roles in marriage or roles in marriage, it's like two people in a rowboat and like you're going the same direction. You have an oar, the other person has an oar, and you both need to move your oar in order to get anywhere. I assumed my oar, like this is my oar, I'm going to do a good job at this. Instead of my previous mindset in entrepreneurship, which was like just that even Stevens thing, like we all need to split everything. Like it was so, it wasn't working.
Yeah, I agree. And, I think too that there is a lot of rhetoric on marriage when you are an entrepreneur, and especially as women, like who we should be and how we should be showing up and doing the things. So I'm curious too, if there was any of that like outside noise was impacting the way you viewed your identity as an entrepreneur, but also as a mom, like before you made those shifts.
I think so. I think there's a lot of narratives. Like you said, there's a lot of narratives, and it takes an awareness of these different narratives to be able to step back and decide how you relate with that narrative. Is that going to work for you? Is that what you want to lean into, right? There's a lot of 50-50 moms on the internet. 50-50, husband this, husband that. It's funny, the more I took over my role, the more I was attracted to my husband, and the more we were in like a good sync with each other, the more we were affectionate and loving, the more our kids saw that. Like, it's really funny. So you have to know, you have to be able to step back on Instagram and the internet and be like, okay, is the way she's doing it, is that going to work for me? Is that what I want to lean into? You know what I'm saying?
For sure. And I think going back to what you said earlier, right? Like we only see such a small fraction of what people are portraying online versus like, this is the reality of like what my home looks like at bedtime, right? Or when I'm trying to do a client call and then all this other stuff is happening, the chaos around me, right? We just don't always see that online.
Right. And with the 50-50 marriages, like, and I'm saying 50-50, I've heard it called like fair play feminist mindset.
Oh, interesting.
Like, yeah. Okay. And with those, I'm a natural skeptic now. If I see a woman like having her husband vacuum or the husband vacuuming or something. I'm like, what's your sex life like? And I literally, that can't help myself but thinking that, like, what is it like? And like, is everything okay? Are you bickering? Are you arguing? Are you nagging your husband? You know,
Yes.
because I was in that place where I was naggy and like, it's not fair. And I couldn't grow as an entrepreneur with that going on. Something was going to fall apart. And it was like entrepreneurship and my business or my marriage. And ultimately, I chose my marriage. I chose to get really quiet. I chose to figure out, I chose to get my house in order and to
Yeah.
start there with those basics and those foundations, and then to re-enter entrepreneurship with everything in order, marriage
Yeah.
wise, husband, wife, children, our rhythms, the structure at home.
Hmm. And I feel like that's a really courageous thing that you did, because it's tempting, like when things are working-ish, right? Like it's good, like there's problems behind the scenes, but okay, I'm making great money and things are chugging along. It's courageous to take that step back and say, no, I'm going to actually choose my marriage. I'm going to choose the happiness, the health of my home and my family. And I'm willing to take the time that I need to figure that out. What was that like for you though? Like, I feel like for me, I'm like, I'm just going to keep chugging along, right? Like my train is just going. And when I think about like slowing down, it's like panic, right? So what was that like for you?
Oh, I went kicking and screaming. I was not all right. I was
Yeah.
like, no. I worked so hard. I don't want to do that. I don't want to stop. I don't want to let go of my old offerings. Like at the same time, I was going through a thing where the offerings that I was trying to scale were no longer aligned anyway, because a lot
Mhm.
of my old mindset was kind of woven into the teachings I was
Yes.
teaching. So it's almost like I definitely went kicking and screaming and was a little bit uh hesitant to stop and let it go, and thought, am I crazy for doing this? Is this the right move? And eventually those voices in my head got quiet, and I was able to just go through a grieving process. It was truly grief. It was not anything like grieving a loss of a person, of course, but it was grief of a lot of energy, creative energy, thinking, late nights. I'll say blood, sweat, and tears. You name it. I put my whole self into that business, and I was grieving the loss of it.
Mm.
And I knew it wasn't gone, but I knew it in a way it was, that I was going to have to reemerge and build a whole new offering suite, and that I was going to have to give myself the time required for that creativity to be truly in alignment with what was next for me. So in other words, you can't rush true creative. I couldn't rush it. I knew I had to go through this process.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I feel like part of that too is like it almost goes back to the piece around like the male female roles, right? Like that polarity. And it's very much in like the masculine, like I'm going to push this through, I'm going to force it, I'm going to make it happen, that kind of like doing energy. And so it sounds to me like you really leaned back into the creative, but to tap into that, we have to have that like breathing room that actually makes it possible to shift into that.
Yes, and my husband was the breathing room for almost 2
Oh,
years. Yeah, and it's great because I feel like there's a sense of a true teamwork now, where it's like I had us at a certain point financially, then I needed a break to reassess. He had us, and now I see us both hitting like a beautiful stride. And it's such a sense of team, and it's such a sense of our efforts being one effort, and a beautiful mutual respect that, I'm grateful for every day.
oh, yeah. Well, that respect is so necessary, right? Like that's such a huge part of having that closeness, that intimacy in marriage is actually having respect for one another. I am really curious. So like when you pulled back, right, and you were grieving and you were kind of like making that shift, what did that first look like in your home life? Like, how did you start shifting your home and your parenting?
Well, I went back to the basics. And so I went back to the basics of keeping the home, routines with chores, routines with just ongoing maintenance. I went back to the basics with cooking and with food. So, breakfast I cook, lunch the kids, we kind of just scrap things together. Dinner I cook. So I kind of established these routines of like, all right, I'm going to put more energy into breakfast. Lunch, we're going to, we'll do it like this. Dinner, I'll do like this. And so it was just the basics of how the home was flowing. And I gave myself that time to allow that to be my work. Like just allow motherhood to be the work, maintaining the home to be the work. And I deeply rested and allowed my mind to wander and think and assess, reflect, a lot of reflection. We started to work on the garden, which was something my husband was really always wanting me to be a part of. But for my early years in entrepreneurship, I really just didn't have the capacity to be a gardener or to even try or to even be involved. It was like there was no capacity. I was on the podcast. I was reading the books. It was entrepreneurship or nothing. Like it was like laser focus, so I was able to expand my perception of how I can serve my husband and how in doing so I stepped just a step out of this leadership place I was in. I needed to step out of that and see that his leadership was really good. Like if I could just take a step back and realize, wow, I should have been in the garden, and he would have like really appreciated, he would have been a source of affection, honestly, from him to me. If I was under, while he's at work, I'm doing these things in the garden that he needed someone to do. Right. So I was able to find these ways where he truly felt supported, work in the garden, learn to grow some food. And I'm such a beginner gardener. He's the gardener. So right. I can't give any gardening tips, to be honest. I'm just.
Oh, sure. I was going to ask next, five tips to grow a flourishing garden.
No, I got none. I got nothing.
Yeah. Right. Yes. So, oh my goodness. Right. Like, I feel like that's such a, I don't know, there's like almost like a metaphor in there. Like I had to be in the garden so my husband could flourish. Right. Like just.
Yeah, his vision started to come to life. And I realized, wow, your vision was so great. What was I doing? Like, your vision is amazing.
Surprise.
Like, I was so, and I love that he's in the leadership role. But as far as I was never going to experience this if I had just continued to push and try to drive the boat. Like, I love being second in command now. I'm like, this is my spot. I'm so stoked that I have this seat, that you have that seat, and I don't want your seat. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm, that he'll out earn me for the duration of the next, I'm going to out earn him again. It's inevitable when you're an entrepreneur. And so, but now I'm not, everything's in order. I know where my seat is, and it's going to be smooth and everything. You know what I'm saying? It's just, we're in the right seats.
Yeah. Yeah. So you had to recalibrate home and marriage and roles so that you could come to a new place where you could build a stronger foundation for your business. So what does that look like going forward? When would you say, because I've noticed, right? Like you're picking it up on Instagram. I'm like watching the cool stuff that you're putting out. When would you say that you started to pick up your business again and really think about starting this up?
Great question. I'm so terrible at remembering time and time frames, but I do know that once I decided, it was lightning fast. It was like I decided, boom, hired the house cleaner, hired the VA, built out a whole product suite of offerings in something like, I don't want to say it was like 3 months. Like I just built a whole new website, wrote new web pages, wrote low tier digital, middle tier, high tier. Like I just went like, because I've done it before.
Yes.
And I'm proud. I was like, boom, let's go. I went through this all. So let me build out what I need with this new approach, because I wasn't advertising myself as a copywriter before, although I did end up doing a lot of copy reviews and things like that. But I knew what I needed. I needed the low tier digital, needed the middle tier, needed the high tier, and I built it out. And so it was pretty rapid. And I have to say, like, I'm very glad that the decision just hit me, or that I made the decision and that it was so clear, because
Mm-hmm.
I knew it was time. It was like, boom, ready to go.
Yes. Right. So again, like you weren't forcing this to happen. You waited until it became clear. And then you knew.
Yes. Yes. It was like a lightning bolt. It was like, boom, go.
Oh
And,
my gosh.
and then everything, I think the energy is there when that happens. When when you know for sure you're all in, the energy's behind it. And so you have that fuel. So,
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Okay. So this leads me to another question, because I'm just thinking of all the mamas who are listening to this, who are juggling like motherhood and business. And I feel like you've got so much wisdom and insight. So for you, you recognized you needed a break. You had built the thing, you had the success, you took the time, you waited for the clarity. What about the mom entrepreneur who is waiting and waiting and waiting, and it's more from like a fear-based place?
okay. Yes, that is a totally other, side of the spectrum. You can wait and wait and wait and never build, you
Right.
know? And so if that's what's going on, you need to get under the hood and ask yourself some confronting questions. Why am I waiting? Do
Mhm.
I have clarity, but am I procrastinating on that clarity? If I had clarity, what would I do today and tomorrow and this week? What am I waiting for? You definitely
Yes.
have to ask those questions, because that actually was never really my pattern of procrastinating. I I was more of the messy, like, let's go, take action, figure it out on the way.
Same.
And so, yeah, and so for the procrastinators, you just definitely want to make sure you're not justifying your waiting time too much. Get under
Yes.
the hood.
Yes. Those were such good questions. And I feel like whoever's listening who needed that, right? Like, you know who you are. You just like pause the episode, go back and like journal on those, because that was like basically journal prompts you just dropped. They were
Yeah,
amazing. So good.
good.
Yeah. Yeah. I figured you'd have something to say. Okay. So you created all of your offers. It sounds like you just went to town building your business back out, which is so exciting. And also, what a gift to your family that you have those skill sets, right? You have the confidence, you know what you're doing. So what does that look like for you moving it forward? Like, I'm really curious, like, what's your main way of marketing? Like, how are you reaching your people? Tell us about that.
Sure, sure. Well, everything is in flux in business always. So I'll just remind
Yeah.
everyone that you don't have to have your marketing plan. The marketing plan you have today doesn't need to be the marketing plan you have in 4 weeks. But it is important that you have a plan and that you are consistent in your execution. So my current plan is, I put my business first. Obviously, I have clients. So most businesses, you have clients, unless you phase clients out and you're doing all middle tier, all low tier
Mhm.
digital, which requires a big audience usually. So, I have clients that I support. And so I actually put my business and my marketing plan first on Mondays. And I make sure that I'm working on things like a weekly blog post, which then becomes turned into Instagram content. It becomes an email. Yeah, smart moms over here
Yes.
know, you just do it one time and pull as much as you can from it. So I work on a weekly blog post, and then, that becomes distributed across multiple channels. So the email, Pinterest, Instagram, and obviously Instagram, you can play around with different formats with things, and I'm playing around with reels and working myself into that. Uh, but so there's some experimenting there. But yeah, mainly it's a weekly piece of content, a core piece of content that is my priority. I do cold outreach as a copywriter. That's another thing that is really cool for me that I didn't do in my previous business model. But with
Yeah.
copywriting, it's actually really cool because it's faster for me to identify that I can help a business or brand than it is for them to find me at this stage. So I do some cold outreach, it's basically, hey, I think I could help you. It's pretty direct, and
How do
then
they respond? I'm just curious.
I don't do it in the DMs. Like some people will
Okay.
do that, I definitely email, and I get a mix of responses. Obviously you get a lot of people who don't respond.
Mm.
And then you get people who say, I'm so excited that you reached out. This is an answer to a prayer. I'm going to need you in 2 months, or let me bookmark this for this, or let's get on a call right now. It's pretty cool. Again, that works for copywriting. It doesn't necessarily, work for everything.
Translate to all
Right.
industries. Right.
Right. So, but back to the weekly content being distributed, a little bit of cold outreach. I would say, the mistake I made in business last time was I wasn't getting on enough podcasts or on enough YouTube channels. And I was, I'm going to say, burning out my list.
Yeah.
So this time I am like, now that everything's built, I'm like, let's go. I want to be on every podcast. Get me on. Let's talk. Obviously I want to be helpful, but I'm not afraid to just go wide fast.
Yes. Well, it makes such a difference because you get to meet other people's audiences. You get to share what you do. They get to know you in a more organic, laid back kind of way. And I feel like that just builds trust so much faster than some of the other methods that we might use.
Yes. And I really, really like long form conversations in this day of, Instagram. And I guess I should say in this day of like the 20-second reel or 12-second reel. I like listening to conversations. I've loved listening to clips from conversations from your podcast. And I love to hear people's stories and more of that depth. I like that long form content.
Yeah, I do too. I feel like that's something that's really missing in our Insta gratification. Everything is just getting to know people as actual people and hearing their stories. I feel like, right, like you could post a 4-second reel, right? Like my hot tip for fixing your copywriting or whatever. Don't use that. That was awful. Right. But you could, but it's not the same as someone sitting and they've got like their cup of coffee and they're just listening to this episode between you and I, and they're able to pull out the nuggets that they need.
Yeah. Yeah. I really appreciate, the longer in-depth convos for sure.
Yeah. Let's just bring it back. We're going to start a movement. We're going to let all of social media know.
I like it.
There you go. Okay. So your marketing, it's a mix of things, which is smart, right? Like you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. I love that you're doing Pinterest. That's something I don't do. I did a long time ago when I had a blog. How are you feeling about Pinterest like in 2023?
Sure. So I had a lot of website traffic hitting my old blog posts and from Pinterest. And Pinterest is one of those things I like as a mom because you are setting it up once, but these pins are, and obviously I'm not a Pinterest strategy professional. My virtual assistant, she takes my blog posts and she sets up the pins for them. And I trust her in that department. And and I'll go check and see the pins and everything. But back in the day when I was setting up my blog with my old business, I had developed so much traffic to one website page through Pinterest that I became like a true fan. I was like, wow, this really does work. Why is my traffic so high to this one page when I am not promoting it at all? In fact, I haven't promoted it in years. I can't understand. But Pinterest traffic over time from that one pin getting pinned was sending hundreds and hundreds of people to this one website page. And it was my most popular page. Funny enough, I don't do anything with that work anymore. I don't have the same offerings or the same content. So it's like, okay, so I'm trying to recreate that where I get that, that avalanche effect with Pinterest. And it's going to take time. But I think for moms, it's such a good strategy.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I absolutely agree. I do think that Pinterest is an undervalued form of social media, but I also loved what you said about like, it's going to take time. And I would really love to hear your thoughts on the time piece, on having patience, right? Again, like I feel like I go into Instagram reels and it's like, how I made $2,000 drinking my morning coffee, right? Or like 2 months into my first business and I've made $1 million. Like, how do you counter? No, right?
Funny.
I'm so jaded at this point, but like, how do you counter that message? And is there actually something maybe more gratifying or freeing when you embrace the time?
Wow, great question. That's a great question. So I would say, for me, I love writing. So it's enjoyable for me to publish something. And so I get gratification from, bringing something to the page, sitting with it, editing it, finalizing it, and publishing it. And so for me, I don't mind. It's not a slog. It's not like I have to do this and I'm pulling my teeth out, so I enjoy that. And so, for anyone listening, I think the question would be, how can you build your business around those marketing activities that are that fuel you, that excite you, that feel natural to you. You don't have to slog away at something, to get results over time. There are people out there who love to do the aspects of business that you don't love to do, that technically, if you just leaned into your zone, you would be better able to then bring those people into your field, into your business, into your team. And
Yes.
you know what I mean?
Yes, right. And I think that there is that like wonky part where as solopreneurs, like when you start out as a solopreneur, you do wear all of the hats, right? And you learn how to do all the things, whether or not you like them. Like,
Yes.
I really don't want to be doing this right now. I got to do it because it's just me. But then you get to a point where I think that's what you were maybe saying, is that you can outsource some of the things you don't love doing.
Right. Well, I think we were talking about gratification. So
Yes.
yeah. And you did bring up a question that was a little bit different. It was like, how can people be patient and stay in that delayed gratification? And I think the alternative way for me to answer the question is, make sure there's ways that you can feel gratified and satisfied in your daily rhythm, and lean into those things. And yes, it is hard in the beginning to outsource, because you got to get money in the door in order to get money out the door. So I've had to do things that I don't, like doing. Even today, there's things I'm in that will, eventually I'll be out of outsourcing. That's just commitment, I think, and discipline, and moving it forward, even when you have to, do things that you don't like to do. But yeah, how can you build that gratification in to your daily workflow?
Yes, I love that so much. And you know what? It actually made me think of motherhood, right? Because there's so many things we do on a daily basis that maybe we don't want to do in motherhood, right? But there's this act of service, and there's something that we get back from loving on our kids and serving them in that way, right? So like, how have you noticed, I know I'm posing a question maybe you haven't thought about right this moment, but like, how do you find those parallels between business and parenting?
That's a great question too. I think I know my non-negotiables in both areas. And so there's a lot of room for grace, because let's just be real, parenting is very hard. It's really hard because the children, depending on their ages, there's a lot of emotional ups and downs. By the time you get a handle on one phase, they're moving into another phase, and then the whole crew has to like go along with it and transform and morph with it. Like, it's constantly changing. And so I think with, you know, basically knowing your non-negotiables, knowing at the end of the day, you need to rest. How do you rest? How do you recharge and prepare for the next day? Starting that next day with a fresh slate and with a clear list in both areas, in both motherhood and your entrepreneurship. When you keep it simple, and you use the word streamlined, when you keep it simple, you keep it streamlined, it allows you to feel on top. And you don't want to underestimate that feeling. Like, that feeling will move mountains in your life. If you can feel on
Mm.
top, if it means 3 things have to come off your list on Monday, like take them off and just,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Right. And sometimes we overcomplicate things, and it's always an opportunity to simplify, right? And get to really the root of like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? What do I value? What does this matter for my future, for my family, right? Like just kind of those core principles that do keep us on track and keep us where we need to be. So speaking of that, when you think about, oh, you've got so many amazing things to look forward to, right? You've got like this beautiful family, your marriage is thriving, you've built out this new business. Like, what are you dreaming about right now, Jillian? Like, what is motivating you forward?
Oh, I love this question. I am so motivated by a better quality of life for my family. That's
Mm-hmm.
it. That's it. I really want to uh, go on a 10-day trip in 2024. I really want an envelope bursting with money for this trip. Just like, like, we're going to go do this. We're going to go do that. I mean, Aaron and I
Yes.
have definitely taken trips and, traveled, taking the kids back and forth to see family. But I have to say, we kind of always, we've always been, I don't know how to put it. Like, we haven't been planners really. I want my
Mm-hmm.
business to really allow us to plan some amazing experiences. Yeah, I'm looking forward to things like taking the kids to my sister who lives in Washington State, but having no concern about, all right, Aaron's going to miss 14 days of work. Like
Yes.
there's more than enough for the time for the work off, for all of the all of the bills, all of the food, all of the travel. And then even getting more expanded beyond that is like, what if, 4 weeks off? What would we do? Right? And you
Yeah.
have had such a cool experience with your family,
Yeah.
bumping around and traveling and seeing so many cool things. And I have to say, I've been very like stationary mom. And I think that works for me in the different phases I've been in
Mhm.
because I'm like a routines person and I'm like, all right, my environment is predictable. So let's like I like it,
Yes.
but
Well, yeah.
but I do want to take the kids to see the mountains where my sister
Yes.
lives. I would like to visit certain areas in Florida. I would like to go, do a long trip to New Jersey where I'm from. And all that requires that, Aaron can take more time off, things like that. And it's funny. It's like there are so many other things I'm looking forward to creating. Oh, I want to build a house.
Hmm.
Isn't that kind of funny? Like it's like so basic. Like
It is not basic. And again, like I'm kind of like the deep thinker. I'm like, what are the connections? But it's like you have been building the house, and then you want to physically build the house from what you have intentionally put together. Right. So why not have that house?
yeah. I
Mm.
want to like, yeah, design. I want to be like the window goes here and like the living room has doors I can shut and like, you know what I mean? And just
Yes.
the tone of the wood and the height of the ceiling and the cabinet height, like all these little things
Yeah.
in my mind is like, why not? Like, is it, could this be something that we get to do in our lifetime? Like, well, why not? And I don't want to do it and feel strapped either. I
Hmm.
don't want to do it and feel like we're spending money that we don't have. I want to
Yes.
do it and feel like there's plenty of money in the bank, that we are set up well, because there's a major difference between financing a bill that you shouldn't be financing and financing a build that you
Yeah.
can handle. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yes. So you really want, like, what I'm hearing is like that stability, the security, the freedom, and to not really have to worry about, oh, goodness, like, am I going to have to hustle to make this happen, or like to go back to that old way of doing it, because you have so beautifully paved this new way for making money in your business?
Yes, the stress is not worth it to me. I would rather live, in a smaller, imperfect house that doesn't have all the cabinets that I want. And I'd rather have money in the bank than, have my dream house and be stressed about it. So I
Mm.
definitely went through, early entrepreneurship, really being really good at spending, really good. Like I was like A+ spender. Like I would send money's coming in, money's going right back out. I'll put it everywhere. You can have some and you can have some, and like, let me just give it all away. So I'm very good at that. And now I'm wiser with my finances, and I'm grateful for coming to this place, basically.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is going to probably be one of my last questions, but how did you get to that place of the wisdom when it comes to your money? Because I know, again, someone's going to be listening and being like, oh, shoot, that's me. I'm feeling called out.
Okay, how did I get to this place? Well, me having to let go of everything, as I described earlier, and realizing I really didn't have anything to show for it once the whole train stopped, really motivated me. Like, whoa, what did I do? Because I was the number one employee over here. I was the one hustling and grinding and staying up late. I was the one who was up early in the morning. I built the website. I did this. And there's literally, once that train stopped and I decided to pull those offerings, that was it. There wasn't money coming in from it, any of it. And could I have put some stuff on autopilot? Yeah, but I wasn't feeling it. It was like that whole model had to go. And so that really woke me up of, whoa, you did it wrong. You didn't save anything from that.
Yeah.
And now you don't have any cushion to take 3 years off. And so what was I doing? I was investing in all kinds of things, which there are so many great investments I've made. Programs, coaches, trainings, PR training, all kinds of stuff.
Right.
Stuff I needed to learn.
Yes.
But I needed percentages. X percentage goes towards reinvesting in the business.
Yes.
X percentage goes in my pocket. X percentage taxes, X percentage Y and Z. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. So I'm guessing, do you do like the profit first? Are you familiar with that?
Yes, I follow that pretty generally. And it helps me feel like I'm making great decisions.
Yes, right. Because it's like having those boundaries for how we use our money, right? It keeps us from getting sloppy or making decisions that maybe in the moment feel really exciting and fun, but don't contribute to the long-term vision. So I'm a big fan of profit first and all about the wisdom with the money. I think that that's so needed in the industry because I can't tell you how many people I hear and they say the same thing. They're like, I'm making insane money. Like I'm making more than my mom and dad ever made. And I've got nothing. So I think this is an opportunity too, for just us moms who are leading online businesses, right? We get to maybe usher in a new way of thinking about it.
Yeah, I like that.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. So where can people find you? Like, what do you got cooking right now? Give us all the deets.
Sure. So my website is www.jillian-anderson.com. That's Jillian with a J. That's my home base. That's where I publish my writing. And it's, the writing is there for people who want to improve their copywriting, essentially your sales messaging, and so I publish there. On Instagram, I'm over at Jillian A. Anderson. And those are my two main places right now. I mean, the people on my email list probably get a little bit more behind the scenes. So that's that's kind of the places I'm at.
Awesome. That's amazing. So definitely go hang out with Jillian. I just feel like she has so much wisdom to offer and could be a really great place for you to head. Jillian, thank you so much for being here, for just sharing your heart, for opening up. I know that these are the things that maybe we talked about, they don't come out on social media, but they help us to understand on our own entrepreneurial and motherhood journey that we're not alone in the things that we're experiencing. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Kate. I really appreciate it.
Are you looking for a business community that honors your season of motherhood while helping you build a profitable business? Enrollment is reopening very soon for Expand Mentoring Membership, my year-long coaching program for moms in business. In Expand, you'll not only get supported in your business, but also home life, so you can balance both with more ease. It's time to create more profit in your business in less time to be the foundation for your family's dream life. To find out all about it and get your name on the waitlist, head to happierinmotherhood.com .com/expand-membership, or you can just click the link in your podcast feed and it will take you right there.